there's a lot of barriers to college, right? Like, I mean, we all know this. There's time, there's stress, there's life, there's all these things. And money ends up being such a big hurdle, and probably now more than ever, just in the crazy time we're living in right now. And so that's kind of what my job is with the bank. Full disclosure, I'm not a banker. That my job is to be an educator with the bank. I run the Money Moments program, and that is my entire job, is to help answer people's questions, help people organize their money so they can buy the things that are important to them, and save for things that are more so. So that's what we're talking about today. Money in college, how to pay for it, how to manage it once you get there, how to make it not be a barrier to whatever next step in your life you see being the right one. Feel free, there's only 8 or so of you, so feel free to stop me anytime and either unmute yourself or put it in the chat, whatever, and we will go from there. So a couple statistics to kind of start off, because I think they're very important. Because sometimes we get caught up in, well, do I want to go to college? But, I've been okay so far, in life without college, so maybe I don't need it. Well, I mean, a college grad ends up earning nearly $1 million more over the course of their lifetime than someone who does not go to college. So that's kind of like, that's an incentive, that's one heck of a carrot out there to be striving for. That's pretty cool. But I think it's a big thing to remember. It's not like you just get all that when you graduate, right? Sometimes people see that and they're like, that's fine. I can go into debt to go to college because I'm going to earn $1 million. But maybe you didn't see I'm going to get $1 million, right? It's not like they give you that check. Come on, President Crow, really? You can't just write me something? So the average student graduates with over $35,000 of student loan. Now that's average, okay? So some people are above average, some are below that, but that's important to realize that. So we want to balance those two things. We want to be able to capture the good parts of college without being, saddled with all this debt. And how do we do that? Well, there's kind of 3 steps to kind of making this feel achievable. The first thing is to borrow smart, okay? The best way to borrow is to not have to do it at all. That's awesome. That's like the best borrowing. So that's all part of borrowing smart. The second part is to spend cautiously. This is kind of the bulk of where I want to spend my time today. I'm not going to lie to you. This is like the meat and potatoes of it, is how do you budget? How do you manage those expenses? How do you be in control of your finances and things like that? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like my money it's like this chaotic thing that sometimes I can't see towards the end of the month. I just see what's in front of my face right now. Okay, I can see this grocery bill and I can see this house payment, and that's all I can see, and I can't see past that. And when that happens, then it's really difficult to feel like we're working towards a plan, because we're just working towards the day-to-day. So that's what we're going to talk about, is working towards a plan, not just the day-to-day. And then finally, how to repay responsibly. So let's say you did have to take out a loan. All right, then what do you do with it? Because really what's kind of interesting is a lot of people think their repayment plan doesn't start until after they graduate, but that's not true. Your repayment plan starts when you take out a loan. They might not be collecting money when you take out a loan, but you've got to have that repayment plan in motion and planned out, mapped out, because you don't want to take out something that you don't have an exit strategy from. So these are kind of our 3 things that we're going to go through. So we're just gonna use a fictitious person, okay? So we're gonna pretend Victoria here. We're gonna pretend she's 27 years old. We're gonna pretend she's got 2 young kids. We're gonna pretend she wants to go back to school to major in computer science. Cool. Good for you, Victoria. Let's see what she's gonna do about that situation. So the very first thing that Victoria wants to do is look for any free money that she's got, okay? So this is any kind of scholarship, this is any kind of grant, this is any kind of government program, this is any kind of aid, this is any of that beautiful money that you don't have to pay back. Because the more of that we can get, right? And guys, can I just tell you a pet peeve of mine? It really drives me crazy when people say, apply for a scholarship like it's some easy thing. Like you just go to the scholarship store and you're like, which one? Oh, this one looks good. Like, this is a nice one. I'll just take it off the shelf. Like, that is not, please manage your expectations. It is not that. You've got to dig for them. And doing one Google search and being like, there's none. Like that's not it, right? So where do you look? Great places to start looking for scholarships. I mean, yes, you've got the big internet databases, right? You've got like the fast webs of the world, which are great, but you also want to be a little creative. You want to start thinking about what organizations are you near to or involved in that might have something. What have you ever been before? Like I don't know, let's say growing up you were a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout. Okay, cool. Like, does that organization have anything? And you got to be creative, right? So you got to really make sure you've maximized all of that. If you can't crank out a 3 to 5 page personal statement essay in your sleep, haven't applied for enough scholarships. Cool. So she's done that. She plans to continue working. Now, look, I know that this is a really touchy thing for a lot of students because some people say, hey, I'm going to work full time all the way through school. Some people say I'm going to work part-time all the way through school. Some people say I can't do that. I'm going to hunker down 12 months. Boom. I'm going to do nothing but school and I'm going to be that. Like, and everybody has their own preferred method, right? So Victoria, she's going to be in the middle. She's going to plan to work part-time. So she's going to need to fill the gaps with loans. And that's kind of the approach that I want you to think about. Think of loans as like a gap filler and not the primary objective. Okay, so loans are like the little, there's not quite enough. We're going to sprinkle some stuff in there. Okay. That's what they generally say to do. That's the path that I took to go back to school. And that's the path a lot of people take to go back to school. Of those loans, there's 2 kinds of loans. Okay. There's government loans and then there's everything else. So, private loans sometimes get a misinterpretation because sometimes people hear private and they think, oh, well, private loans, that's just like you're borrowing from a person. No, private could be a company. Private could be an institution. Private could be a bank. Midfirst does not do student loans, full disclosure. But it could be anything that's not the government. Those are the only 2 categories. So you want those government loans first, let me tell you. Like the best kind of loan is no loan. The second best kind of loan is a government loan. Like if we're going to rank it, that's where we're at. Because with a government loan, there's a fixed interest rate. You don't have to pay it if you're enrolled at least half time. Okay. Most of them do not require a credit check, which we're going to get into, but just kind of the big idea of that. Remember, most loans rely on like, hey, let's pull your credit, see what you make, see if you can pay this off. Government student loans don't do that. They also are eligible for a lot of government repayment plans. So those, they change a lot. You'll want to go to the federal studentaid.gov site to kind of make sure you understand what the 2020 rules are. But I'll just give you an example of my own thing. So when I went back to school to get my teaching stuff all figured out for Arizona, I ended up being eligible. I had some federal loans and I was eligible for a $5,000 loan forgiveness because I taught in a high need public school system. So like, that's just an example of something that was out there. It was a $5,000 debt forgiveness, which means it was just like, that didn't happen. We're going to erase it. And that's not the only program. That's one that I personally benefited from. But if you look at, government repayment plans, government loan forgiveness, all that stuff is out there. Now you contrast that with private loans. And guys, here's the thing. It's not that private loans are bad. It's that they can be bad. See, that's the difference. I'm not going to paint with this huge broad stroke and say, yeah, all private loans are terrible. It's that they have the possibility to be. And that's what makes it scary. All right. So you got to just kind of do extra due diligence on your part. So they can have a higher interest rate than a government loan. They might require, in fact, many do require payments while you're in school, right? So you got a federal loan. You don't have to worry about making those payments until after you graduate. Now, you might want to start making those payments. We're going to talk about that, but you don't have to. Not so with private loans. Some do require a credit check, which may or may not be a problem for you. And they are not eligible for any government repayment plan, which means whenever you hear about the government talking about, oh, what should we do to student loans? Should we make an income-based repayment plan? Should we allow debt to be forgiven after 10 years? That conversation doesn't matter to you because you have a private loan and you got to pay it, right? So that's really important things to consider when you're looking, trying to get an apples to apples comparison. Now within that, I know I said there were only 2 types of loans, and that's true, but like within those 2 types, there's subsidized and unsubsidized loans, right? So subsidized, those are beautiful things, okay? Because subsidized loans are someone's paying your interest for you while you're in school. Remember, guys, free, if a loan is free, that's not a loan, that's like a grant, right? It's like, or that's like somebody just giving you money that you pay back. There's no fee associated with it. Subsidized loan, yeah, that interest, someone's paying it for you while you're in school. Now you do start accruing interest when you graduate, but not during those beautiful years of you being in school. Unsubsidized, no. So let's say you have a 6% interest rate. You get an unsubsidized loan at the beginning of your freshman year. You start owing interest that next day. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day, infinite next days until 4 years from now. So that means when you graduate, you're going to owe more money on an unsubsidized loan than a subsidized loan. So subsidized is the way to go, okay? Remember, the best loan is no loan. Second best loan is a federal loan. Third best loan is a federal subsidized loan because they're paying your interest while you're in school. How do you get these things? You got to fill out the FAFSA, all right? The free application for student aid. People don't look. I'm not going to lie to you guys. People don't love doing this. I'm just going to be straight up with you. But the reason they don't like it is because they're like, I need so many things. I need all the stuff to do it. And I get it. Like, I'm not going to say it's fun. But if you know what you need going into it, it shouldn't be that bad, right? Oh, where'd it go? Yeah, so you need social security number, you need your income tax returns, bank statements, right? If you've got all that when you start, it's pretty painless, okay? It's less than doing your taxes. Let's just put that out there, okay? Then you want to kind of see where you fall in terms of what age you're eligible for. So some loans are need-based, which means they're looking about what you are able to contribute. So these are things like Pell Grant, direct subsidized loan, Perkins loan, work study, like all you'll hear about these kinds of things. So the big thing to remember, need-based aid is the cost of attendance, so how much it costs, minus what they expect you to contribute. So if you were still a dependent on your parents, it's what your family is. You guys are all veterans, so you're considered independent students. So that's you, and if you spouse, whatever, what you are expected to contribute. Now, I'm just going to, again, tell you, you are going to argue with that number. I argued a lot with that number, okay? When you look at the number that the government says that they expect you to contribute to your education, you're going to be like, yeah, and you also want me to eat? What? Are you kidding? So just know that going into it, that number is going to feel high. When you're looking at non-need based, these are things like direct unsubsidized loan plus loans, these kinds of things. You're looking at the cost of attendance minus any aid you've received so far. So this doesn't take your financial situation into account. It just is like, well, have you received other aid? Okay, we'll give you more, blah, blah, blah. So I want to give you, there's a lot of like detail things. Now we're looking at the like big picture. So let's pretend our cost of attendance is $25,000 a year. What are we going to do? Well, there's kind of like a thirds thing we're striving for, right? So we want to have as much of it as possible taken care of with scholarships. All right, as much of it as we can. So let's pretend that's what she did. Let's pretend she hustled and she got $9,000 worth of scholarships. Great, we're filling it up. Next, she got a subsidized loan. Now, guys, there are limits. Okay, you can't borrow infinite money from the government. And that's going to feel frustrating. When you're trying to make this thing fill up and you're trying to make ends meet, that's going to feel frustrating. Don't be frustrated, because there's a reason those limits are there. Those limits are there for your benefit, to help you from taking out loans that you would never in a million years be able to repay. So she's going to take some subsidized loan. She's going to take some unsubsidized loan. And then the last bit is kind of the other category. So this is where maybe you've saved for this. Maybe you're continuing to work. Maybe you're taking on an additional job. Or maybe your family is helping you out. Like that other category is kind of the third thing, right? So you see how we've got like scholarships, grants, loans, and then the other category. And that's generally how people do it. That's generally how people do it. If you're noticing that this isn't filling up, it's very tempting to just be like, okay, heck with it. I'm just gonna go and take out a ton of private loans, a ton of really expensive private loans, rather than give up on my goal. And before you do that, I really caution you, it's not waiting till you find a better way is not giving up on a goal, right? That's not giving up on a goal. Getting yourself into a bad situation that you'll never financially recover from, that's a long-term thing. So we want to be very cautious before we jump into something that might not be the best thing. Find the way to make it the best thing. Like here's an example of like a don't do it. Okay, because what do some people do? They say, man, I didn't get enough loans. I can't really make ends meet, but I still want to go to college. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of my living expenses on a credit card. I'm going to make my own loan. And I wish I could tell you I just like made this up in PowerPoint land, but I didn't. I see this happen all the time. Guys, think of how many students I talk to at ASU, like every year, and I see this happen. So let's pretend that you have $1,500, that you took $1,500 of your living expenses and you put it on a credit card because you were like, well, I don't know what else to do. 21% interest rate on that credit card. Remember, guys, that's not what we're talking about. Student loans, federal loans, we're looking at 4, 5, 6%, 7%, right? Credit card, 21%. It's a big old thing. Or 16% or 25, like, but in that playground is what we're looking at. So I just want to show you how this would end up, right? So that means you're looking at a minimum payment of about $30-ish that you have to start paying right away. It's going to take you 10 years to pay off those living expenses. And you'll have paid $2,000 in interest. So if we're looking at, for us math majors, right, that's more than the 1,500. I mean, that's a lot. Your total cost now has doubled. You've taken $1,500 of living expenses and they've become $3,000. So a lot of people look at the credit card as like, oh, that's like my backup. That's like my backup for living expenses. No, a credit card is a backup for, oh my gosh, I got in a car accident and I can't afford my car repair. And even then, I hope you have an emergency fund that you're using and not the credit card. And this is really more for, I really don't think anybody on this call would do this, but this is also for your circle, folks. Something I believe very firmly is that it's doing our society a disservice that money has become a taboo thing to talk about. Just watch, observe your friends. Next time you guys are, talking to each other, notice like how silent it gets if one of you brings up money. People are like, well, yeah, money and things, but like no one ever wants to talk about it. Let's work together to make that not a thing. If you see someone paying their living expenses on a credit card and they're making the minimum payment and they're keeping doing it, you could be the one that says, hey, what other strategies are there? Because I don't think long-term this is going to work. Like, what could we do instead? And sometimes that feels like an aggressive thing to say to a friend, but it's not, right? It's a thing that we can talk about without it feeling like a taboo topic. I'm real fun at parties, guys, if you can't notice. I'm the one who's like, what's your interest rate on your credit card? Is that the best option for you? So anyway, another thing. Okay, so now I want to pause here because I've just like thrown a lot of like loan and paying for information stuff in your face. We're about to get into the budgeting and how to organize your spending and things like that section, but I don't want to have just blown through this with no questions. So anybody have anything you want to type in the chat? Raise your hand, ask. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. Cool. All right. So let's go to spend cautiously. Oh, come back, spend cautiously. Where are you going? All right. So the next step, once you've got your payment plan, again, the best loans are no loans, but if you do have a loan and if you have an unsubsidized loan, so let's say that nobody's paying that interest for you, guess what? You can subsidize your own loan, which means if the government isn't stepping in and paying your interest while you're in school, you can do that for yourself. You can start paying towards your loan while you are in school if you have an unsubsidized loan, and it saves you money, and I'll show you how. So like, let's assume this. Let's pretend you have $10,000 of principal. So principal means the original amount that you borrowed. You have $10,000 that you borrowed of an unsubsidized loan, 6% interest rate. When you graduate, you will have about $6,000 of interest, right? Because it's going to just keep going and keep going. By the time you graduate, by the time you finish making those payments, you'll have paid $6,000 in interest. It's a lot. However, if you start paying that in school over the lifetime of the loan, if you start right when you're in school paying that $25 a month, 25 bucks, okay? If you start doing that while you're in school, over the lifetime of that loan, you've just saved yourself almost $500, because the faster you pay off a loan, the cheaper it becomes, because you don't have to pay as much in interest. The interest doesn't capitalize on itself and you don't have to pay it for as long. So these are big things. Now, 25, that's a small amount. What if it's more than that? What if it's 50? What if it's $50? You save almost $900 over the lifetime of your loan. That's a lot of money. And the problem with this, guys, is when it's spread out. If someone said, hey, would you do this for a $900 check? People would be like, absolutely. But because it's spread out over time, people think, oh, whatever, it's $30 here, $40. No, you got to look at that big picture. $900, that's a lot. The best option, if you pay your principal and interest payments while you're in school, so that's about $111, which I get it. That's a lot every month. But that's the biggest savings. Look what you've had. You save yourself $3,500 in interest. That is big. So that's another thing we can be doing. When we're crafting our budget, it's easy to say, okay, when do I have to make these payments? But it's also like, when should I start making these payments to better my financial situation? On that note, okay, all the math I've done for you up until this point has been based on 4 years. Now, if you can graduate earlier than that, cool. Graduating on time is one of the most important things that you can do in terms of budgeting, because like, I would hate for you to go through this whole plan and then just take an extra semester or take an extra year. Right now, is it worth it to graduate? I mean, yeah, but the best thing to do is to plot it out, do everything the best of your ability so that you can graduate in that time frame. Because the implications of taking that extra semester, taking that extra year, can be huge in terms of your finances. So you really want to make sure you're doing everything you can. Talk to that advisor, your academic advisor. You guys should be BFFs, right? Okay, so I have everything on track. Okay, cool. So if I drop this class, can I take it next semester? Because I want to make sure, oh, wait, you're telling me it's only offered once a year? Okay, well, I got to be on top of that. You got to be proactive. All right, so now, again, up till now, we've only been talking about loans. I also want to talk about just spending in general. So even if your college journey begins a long time from now, you could actually still put this stuff into practice like tomorrow. Okay, this is good stuff. I don't like to tell people to just go start a budget. I don't like to tell people that, because that sounds like, oh, all right, so what? I'm going to like take a piece of paper and like write how much I want to spend at the grocery store, and then like there's my budget. That's not a budget. That's a guess. And it's probably going to be a bad guess. Okay. So look, I'm telling you right now, I don't care where you're at in your financial picture. I'm about to give you 4 steps. If you follow these 4 steps in your life right now, you will come out on the other side of it feeling like you're more in control of your money, period. Like you just will. So step number 1 is we've got to kind of figure out where we're at in life. Okay. So you got to look at your net worth statement. What do I have versus what do I owe to other people? Savings and debt. What do I have? What do I owe to other people? So like this example, what do I have? Well, I've got $100 in a rainy day savings account. Haven't really got to retirement yet. Kind of living paycheck to paycheck. What do I owe to other people? Some credit card debt, some medical debt. Okay, this is where we're at. People don't like to do this step because they think it's depressing. You know what? I'm here for, I get it. I get it. I will tell you the positive though. If you're a worrier like me, okay, worrier, this actually might be a surprisingly positive step for you. And let me tell you why. Until you put the numbers down, until you actually like look at realistic numbers, we kind of invent the problem in our head. And it snowballs into being worse than we think it is. Until we actually, so like for me as a worrier, when I did this, it was actually a positive step because I was like, oh, okay, well, like it's bad to be clear, but it's not like so bad. Like I was thinking so bad. We're like fine. We're like medium bad. That's good. So that's a really positive first step. So then when you start here, the next step is you say, all right, what are my goals realistically? So yours might be, I want to attend college and I'm going to need X amount of money to do that. Or you might be saying, you know what, I can't do that yet because I'm paying off debt first. Or you might be saying, you know, I want to fund a retirement. Like whatever your goal is, whatever your financial goal is, you have to say how much, like concretely, what do you want to do? And how much money is it going to take? Then step 3, now this is the fun part. And remember, I have a warped perception of fun. Okay, we've already established this. The fun part is for the next 30 days, you observe your spending. Don't try to change it. Just observe what you spend in your normal life. Okay. So for 30 days, just, all right, this is what I spent on rent, or this is what I spent on the mortgage. This is what I spent on the grocery store. This is what I spent all these different places. Because if you don't do this, then you really don't know where you can cut that will have the biggest impact on your finances. You're just going to guess. And guessing doesn't help anybody. Yeah. Did you have a question, Dante?
I did have a question. So quick question. So
Yeah.
I know on here it shows as credit card / medical, $100. So are you prioritizing what you're paying first? Because in the last 2 slides, it was 3 different credit cards and a medical payment that you had to do. So are you breaking that $100 up into like all 4 of those things, or are you?
Yeah, no, that's good catch. Yeah, so that $100 is assuming that that's the minimum payment on everything. Minimum. So yeah, you're paying just whatever the minimum is you're paying the minimum payments. What I'm saying you'll want to do is you want to, because remember one of their goals was to pay that off faster, right? So as you're paying it off faster, that means you have to take that money from somewhere else. So where's it going to come from? Well, this person decided they were going to cut from these places, okay? And then they were going to repurpose that money into, you know, other stuff. So they were able to cut $375 out, and they were going to repurpose it into like, okay, instead of 100, now we're spending 250 on debt. Okay. Now there's a lot of ways to prioritize that. You can just cut it into 4 pieces and, you know, credit card, medical, or, you know, or you could say, I'm going to pay the highest interest rate first, or you could say, I'm going to pay the biggest balance first or the smallest balance first. We're actually going to get to that. It's really interesting, the psychology of that. But in terms of, I guess the big takeaway for this purpose is accelerating your debt payment by taking it from other things is what's going to get it paid off faster, which is a good thing. All right. So if this person does this for a year, oh my gosh. I mean, by taking, that's the whole thing with budgeting. What do I spend? realistically, this is what I spend. Oh, these things are more important than these things, so I'm going to take money from this and put it over here so that the things I'm saying are more important can get bigger faster. That's all a budget is, guys. No one should tell you what should be important to you. All a budget does is make sure that the things you are saying are important to you are the same things that you're spending money on. Because if you say this is important and yet all your money is going to this, that's a disconnect, right? Last little section on this, guys. When you're going through this process, it is going to be so super tempting to compare your situation to the people around you. Maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your family. It's going to be so super tempting. Well, gosh, here I am cutting this, and that person's not cutting this, or I'm, I'm struggling more than this person, or they're struggling more than me, or this and this. It's just, you know what, guys? Can I just tell you, it is really easy to make it look like you've got it all together. All right. It is harder to have it all together. So when we see people that like look like they have it all together, it's especially now, especially in Zoom. Oh my goodness. Like at least before you had to try, like you can't see the disaster happening on the other side of this screen. All right. And that is intentional. But it's always been easy to make it look like you got it all together. So comparing, it's worthless. We can't do it. We can only worry about ourselves. As you're looking to repay, the things that are going to help you make this decision. What is my total loan amount? What is my interest rate? And what is my monthly payment? You have to know those three things before you can make, doing like what Dante's saying and saying, well, what am I prioritizing? Okay, you've got to know these three things. What's my total loan balance? What's my interest rate? What's my monthly payment? Okay. When we're talking about repayment, when we're talking about prioritizing debt, there's a couple key terms that we want to know about. The first one is deferment. So deferment is the period of time that loan payments are suspended, which means you do not have to pay them. Forbearance is your lender agrees to reduce your payment if you don't qualify for deferment, first thing. People use those terms interchangeably and then they're not, all right? Default is when you fail to make your regularly scheduled payments. That's not a good thing. And finally, your promissory note. Sometimes they skip the promissory. Sometimes people just call it the note. And you're like, the what? The music note? What are you talking about? It's a legal document you sign promising to pay back your loans. It's the thing that you clicked through really fast to just get done with it. It's that thing. All right, so this is where we start hearing about, when we start to look at a debt plan, we start to hear words like consolidation. Not just student loans, this is any loan. Okay, here's the thing. A consolidation loan is when you have like this loan, this loan, this loan, this loan, and you get a new big loan to pay off the smaller loans. I get asked regularly, well, should I consolidate my loans, Emily? Is it a good idea? It could be. It depends if it betters your financial situation. If consolidating the loans betters your financial situation, then it's better, right? If it doesn't, then it's not. What betters your situation? Making it cheaper. So maybe you got a cheaper interest rate. That's the biggest reason people usually consolidate or refinance a loan, is when they can get it at a cheaper interest rate. When is it also better? It's better if your alternative is that you are not going to make the payments at all. Because if you can't make those payments at all, now you're going to be in trouble, because your credit score is going to tank. You might have to, you've got a lot of issues. When you should not consolidate is when it makes it more expensive for you and you had other options. So sometimes people go, oh, this monthly payment is really a lot for me. I'm going to consolidate this 10-year loan to a 20-year loan so that I can squish my monthly payments to be smaller and more manageable. Right. But you're also going to be paying interest for longer. And so you really got to think about that, whether that's something you're going to want to commit to. You've got to do the math. You've got to do the math for yourself. Be your own self-advocate. Don't let someone else be like, you should do this. Hold on. Show me the math. Let me see why I should do this and what the long-term repercussions might be. Last big concept I want to go over before we kind of open it up to some questions and things. There's a couple different debt techniques that people talk about in terms of repayment, okay? One of the most popular ones is the snowball technique. A lot of people use this. If you ever read any of Dave Ramsey's books, he kind of made it famous, and it's kind of become this thing. People are passionate about their snowball technique, let me tell you. It's a good thing. So the whole snowball thing is that you tackle debt by size. So you do the smallest debt first, then you do the middle debt, and then you do the largest debt. And I want to show you, because intuitively that doesn't necessarily make sense, so I want to show you why that works. So let's go back to our scenario, okay? Let's say we have those 3 credit cards and a medical debt. So here's our 3 things. We've got these 4 debts, and we're making the minimum payments on all of them. But we don't want to be in debt forever, and we want to accelerate our debt payments. And so we go through the whole 4 steps that we talked about. You tighten up your budget, and you find $100 extra in your budget. And you're like, great, I have $100 more to put towards debt. How do I allocate that? Some people might say, oh, you should put that towards debt number 4 because it's the biggest. It's going to have the biggest impact. Some people say, no. Divide it up into 4 pieces, 25, 25, 25, 25. Equal, okay? I'm saying in the snowball technique, you put it onto the smallest one. So now, instead of $15, you're paying $115. What's really cool is because that's so small compared to the other ones, 3 months later, it's paid. Pretty cool. And now you have wiped away a debt. Really awesome. So now you have $115 left over in your budget. So you roll it over into debt number 2. So now instead of paying $30, you're paying $145. And after 7 months, that's paid. Really awesome. Now you're on a roll, okay? So you're taking that $145 that you're no longer paying into debt 2. Now you're adding it to the $55 in debt number 3. After 9 months, that one's paid. And at this point, it's like, who's a debt paying machine? I'm a debt paying machine, and you are on fire, okay? And that's the whole point. The whole idea behind the snowball technique is people want to keep doing things they succeed at, and they don't want to do things when they fail at it or when they can't see a result. People like to compare this to dieting all the time, okay? So they say, like, you know, if you're trying to lose weight and you eat a salad and you go step on the scale and you're like, I'm the same. Salads are dumb, right? No more salads. They don't work. But what if you somehow got on that scale after eating a salad and you weighed less? You'd be like, hey, salads, look at this. This is amazing. That's kind of what the snowball technique is. The snowball technique is you see a success early, so you want to keep doing it. It's psychological. The argument against the snowball technique, I'll just tell you, because people also love to say it's stupid. Just saying. The other technique is the avalanche method. I don't know where we have come up with all these mountain metaphors, but there you go. All right. The avalanche method is you take the highest interest rate first, and then you pay that off fast, and then the next one and the next one and the next one. So the thought process behind the avalanche method is that it saves you money. And that is factually correct. I mean, that is true. Mathematically, the avalanche method, yeah, you got to pay off the biggest interest rate first because that's what's getting more expensive faster. Dave Ramsey and the people who say the snowball method is best say, right, but you're not going to stick to the avalanche method because you're not going to see that success for a long time. And then when you don't see success, maybe you take that extra money and you don't put it towards debt. Maybe you put it towards something else. Maybe you put it towards something else. And then you've lost money because you're not sticking to your plan. So which one's the best? The one you're going to stick to. Honestly, that's the best. The best way to pay off debt is to make a plan that you're going to stick to. I find it's helpful to calculate it out so that you can really see, exactly where you're going to be after a month, after a year, after 2 years, because then it's not some abstract concept. It's like real actionable behaviors, which is really cool. Either way, though, you do want to take it very seriously, because if you do have a student loan and you do end up defaulting on it, which means you don't pay it, it's going to be hard. You're probably going to have difficulty obtaining future credit. You might be ineligible for future aid. There's going to be collections agency, like they might say the loan balance is due in full immediately. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could happen. So regardless of what we do, we want to really make sure that we are taking that responsibility seriously. There's a myth out there that I keep hearing that's like, oh, no, but like if you miss your first student loan payment, it's fine. And I don't know where that comes from. Like, nope, not fine. you got to make all of them, okay? And so that's something to really consider. Those late payments, if you do make a late payment, it's going to stay on your credit for 7 years. So anybody that looks at your credit report in the next 7 years is going to see that late payment that you missed. If you want to see, and then 35% of your score comes from that. So if you're looking at your credit score, 35% of your score comes from whether you pay on time or not. Who's going to look at that? A lot of people. Lenders, employers, landlords, all those people are going to be looking at that information. So if you want to know in advance what they're going to see, highly suggest that if you haven't looked at your credit report or your credit score recently, I would do that. All right. It should be something that you are familiar with. Annualcreditreport.com is the official free way to do it. And I think I want to say they're even making it more available than usual because of COVID. I think they're through April 2021. They're giving you even more free looks into your credit. There are other things you can use, apps like Credit Karma. A lot of credit cards themselves, or like I think Discover Card lets you look at it all the time. Either way, you should know what's in there. What if there's a mistake? What if there's something that's wrong? What if there's something not being reported? You want to know, okay? Because these people are going to look at it, okay? If you're applying for a job and someone pulls your credit and they see something that's wrong on there, that's important. If someone's giving you a car loan, if you've got, you're getting a mortgage 5 years from now, like those people are going to see what's on your credit and they're going to see those missed payments. So the recap, remember guys, borrow smart. The best loan is no loan. Second best is federal. Third best is federal subsidized. Yeah. Scholarships, working, making sure you're, getting your budget under control, which goes hand in hand with spend cautiously. Observe before you track. Observe what you're spending before you try to change it, so the changes are strategic and not random and actually pushing you forward towards a goal. Repay responsibly. All right. You want to make sure you're making every payment on time. You're not consolidating if it's not smart for you. You are doing that if it is smart for you. You're using either the Snowball or the Avalanche or whatever plan you have, as long as you got some plan. And then as you go through, if you have any questions, I want to offer myself as a resource. You guys are inundated with resources. Upward Bound, fabulous resource, okay? ASU, the university in general, has amazing resources. They've got these calculators. They've got this thing called iGrad on their website that helps you do all this stuff. I am another resource that you can use so Midfirst is the official bank partner of the university. So because of that, you don't have to have an account with us. You don't have to bank with us, but you can take advantage of our resources. So feel free to email me. Hey, Emily, I just checked my credit and I don't understand what this thing means. Can you explain it? Or I'm having a hard time finding a resource about this student loan. Can you kind of point me in a direction? Add me to the toolbox. I'm happy to do that. with that being said, I want to wrap up and see if there's anything that I can help you guys with now. Either something you have a question about, or maybe something that you already do that you want to kind of share with people that has helped you in some way, financially. Cool. Well, gosh, thanks, guys. I'm really impressed that you all decided to spend this time to better yourselves financially when there's so many things. Um, uh, Julia says, I actually bank with Midfirst. Can you explain how there's no fee when you take cash out in? Oh, uh, oh, you're talking about a Midfirst policy, the ATM fee. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, guys, this is an important thing. Yeah, Julia's right. So this is an important thing when you're deciding who to bank with, or opening up any bank account ever, right? You want to know, okay, but like, what are the fees going to be, right? You want to ask. And I feel like a policy that people don't ask a lot about is, well, what if I'm at an ATM? Now, me personally, I haven't touched cash in the past 4 months. It's been kind of crazy. But it's an important thing to know is, when you take cash out, Midfirst is a smaller bank. We're not Bank of America. We're not trying to be. But one of the reasons people don't like small banks is because they're like, oh, well, I can never find an ATM that like won't charge me. So that's kind of what Midfirst does is they say, hey, look, you can take money for free out of anybody's ATM. We'll reimburse all those fees because we know we're a smaller bank. We're not Chase. We're not trying to be Chase. So we'll let you take money out of their ATMs for free. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool policy, and you do want to ask about those regardless of who you're banking with. And oh, Julia says she's taken out of Mexico. Yeah, one of our favorite things, we've got a banker who loves to say, hey, I mean, hypothetically, if you were in Vegas, not that I've done that, but like those casinos I hear also offer you free ATMs. And I'm like, sure, dude, sure. Not from personal experience. That's fine. Well, thank you guys. Again, you have my email. You're more than welcome to email with anything you might have. But otherwise, yeah, thank you so much for your wonderful hospitality. Appreciate it, you guys.